everyone in the audience today to take a trip with me. Well, you don't have to pack a bag, so don't worry. You don't have to call off work. You know you're going to have to be there this one day. It's going to be a brief trip down memory lane. Now, there are many memories and experiences on this lane. Take, for instance, your first car. You remember how you felt when you had your first car? That feel of independence. Or maybe when you first got baptized. How you felt when you dedicated your life to Jehovah God. Or even your wedding day. How you felt when you found that special someone to share your life with. Now, I want you to take all those experiences and lay them out on the table. And with each experience, think about how richer they became when you shared them with your friends. When you got your first car, one of the first things you probably did was call your best friend. And you said, hey, I got that car. I can take you anywhere you want to go, as long as you got that gas. Or what about your baptism? As soon as you came out the water, you seen all your friends smiling and waving, clapping, because they felt exactly how you felt. They felt happy that you dedicated your life to Jehovah. And even on your wedding day, how much richer was it that everyone you cared about showed up to show their support for your choice? Now, when you take all of that, all those experiences, how you felt, that connection you had with your friends, it becomes very clear that friendship is a basic human need, just like love and other human needs, just like we eat and sleep. Jehovah designed us to need and enjoy loving friendships. It's just a fact. We see it early on in life. A story that comes to mind is when my sister-in-law, she took my nephew and a few other young ones to the beach. And while there, they started playing with another little boy. All day long, they played in the sand and the water with this little boy. And at the end of the day, my sister-in-law said, Rashad, who's your friend? So Rashad looked at the other kids, and they looked back at her, and they said, that's Dinosaur. Dinosaur? And she looked, why would they call him Dinosaur? She looked at the little boy's shirt. It had a dinosaur on it. They befriended this little boy, didn't even know his name. So we can see that even without knowing that child's name, he was able to form a bond, a friendship with him. Now, the Bible even encourages us to form loving friendships, not just with other humans, but with God as well. Proverbs chapter 17, verse 17 states, true friends show love all the times, and is a brother who was born for times of distress. Psalms chapter 25, verse 14 says, close friendship with Jehovah brings to those who fear him, and he makes his covenant or plans known to them. So it's very clear that friendship is an institution created by Jehovah God. So that's it. It's perfect, right? Well, we live in an imperfect world, so it's not that simple. The Bible places a stipulation on a different kind of love and friendship. And we find that stipulation at James chapter 4, verse 4. That's James chapter 4, verse 4. And it reads, adulteresses, do you not know that friendship with the world is enmity with God? Whoever, therefore, wants to be a friend of the world is making himself an enemy of God. Excuse me. We see here that James identified friendship with or love for the world as being a factor that can jeopardize our very relationship with Jehovah God. Now, this may seem confusing especially in view of the fact that both Jehovah and Jesus love mankind. Is that not true? Proverbs chapter 8, verse 31 states, I rejoiced over the earth, and I was especially fond of the sons of men. John chapter 3:16, a scripture we use in the ministry very often, God loved the world so much that he gave his only begotten Son, so that everyone exercising faith in him might not be destroyed, but have everlasting life. So why would Jehovah grant us the ability to forge friendships just to tell us not to do so? Unless there was a danger. What dangers lie with befriending the world? Well, first, what is the world considered here in the Bible? Well, let's turn to 1 John chapter 5, verse 19. That's 1 John chapter 5, verse 19. And that reads, we know that we originate with God, but the whole world is lying in the power of the wicked one. So here, John's words about the world, or John's words about the world refers to human society apart from Jehovah's faithful servants and alienated from Jehovah God. What makes them alienated from Jehovah? Well, John's words about the world tells us that the wars, crime, cruelty, oppression, dishonesty, immorality that are so rampant today give evidence of Satan's influence, not of Jehovah's. So, try as they might, even the most sincere people cannot overcome that influence because Satan rules this world. It's kind of like they're apples. Well, what do I mean? Well, EndlessSimmer.com is a cooking website. It says there are over 100 ways you can prepare an apple. It can be baked, it can be stewed, sauced, pickled. You can have apple curry, apple soup, apple salad, apple pie. It's a favorite of mine, etc. The list goes on and on. But at the end of the day, if you're allergic to apples, it doesn't really matter how you prepare it. It's no good for you. The same is true of those alienated from God. No matter how sweet, how sincere, how kind, how lovable, how compassionate, they're still no good for our spiritual health. And that's a question we need to ask ourselves. Are all my friendships beneficial for my spiritual health? Continuing on, another reason, 2 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 4, highlights that the deceptive tactics of Satan are unknown to the mass majority in the world. That's another reason why they're alienated from God. Let's turn there. 2 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 4. And that reads, among whom the God of this system of things has blinded the minds of the unbelievers, so that the illumination of the glorious good news about the Christ, who is the image of God, might not shine through. So in essence, the Apostle Paul states here that Satan uses each part of his worldly system, the false religion, political governments, and commercialism, to mislead people, blinding their minds to the greatest need of all, which is to cultivate a friendship with Jehovah God. Now, due to Satan's deceit, God's counsel and standards are widely discarded. We see this at 2 Timothy chapter 4, verses 3 through 5. It says, a tickling of people's ears. The world system does this by condoning practices that appeal to wrong desires, such as sex outside of marriage, homosexuality, and drunkenness, and so on and so forth. The Bible clearly states that those who approve of such things and those who practice them will not inherit the kingdom of God. So little wonder then that Jehovah tells us neither to love the world or to befriend the world, because it's influenced by his very enemy. But how can we heed this warning? Well, we do this by shunning friendship with the world. Now, shunning friendship with the world takes continual action on our part. It's not just a one choice a day. You have to do it continually. We do this not by adopting a superior, haughty attitude, but by imitating Jehovah and Jesus, by having a love for people and viewing them as potential sheep. We shun friendship with the world by resisting the spirit of the world. Now, what do I mean, the spirit of the world? Well, let's turn to 1 Corinthians chapter 15:33, a scripture we all know too well. You can probably quote it before I even get there. Do not be misled. Bad associations spoil useful habits. Let's take a deeper look at this scripture. 1 Corinthians 15:33. Do not be misled. Bad associations spoil useful habits. Now, there's three important things we need to remember about this scripture. The first, it's very clear that Jehovah wants us to be selective about our associates. He wants to protect us morally and spiritually. The second, we are influenced for good or for bad by the people with whom we associate. That's a simple human fact. By habit, we pick up habits from people we associate with. And the third is the most overlooked part of the scripture. The first part, do not be misled. You see, we resist the world by recognizing the danger of the association. The very fact that the verse has it stated shows that people have been misled and will continue to be misled if they don't take the proper precautions. So, how does Satan exert this influence on us? Well, by means of immoral entertainment, Satan leads us to engage in these worldly practices and these deeds that have immoral consequences. Now, we just took a trip down memory lane. Let's make our way down the street to Present Boulevard. What do we see in the world today when it comes to entertainment, when it comes to their philosophies? Well, in TV and television, you see it all the time. If your life isn't scandalous, no one cares about you. You're not worth the time. Or even if someone does something wrong to you, you need to get them back. You need to get them back now, because no one's going to help you get them. You have to do it. But what about music? If you're not living your life like you only live once, you're not really living at all. Worldly philosophies. At an early age, definitely in high school, they teach or promote materialistic and economic goals over spiritual. I remember talking with my guidance counselor right before I graduated, and he said, you won't have a genuine future unless you go to college, unless you put in that hard work academically. But we see that's not the case, is it? So, what is our attitude toward this worldly propaganda? That's a question we have to ask ourselves. All these things stated above contribute to Jehovah God outright condemning friendship with the world, as we see at James chapter 4, verse 4. Choosing to be a friend of the world is choosing to be or befriend the living enemy of God. So, in the Garfield congregation, we see many parents. Now, as a parent, would you allow your child or your grandchild to associate with someone who you knew would have a negative effect on them? I'm sure the answer would be no, because you don't want your child to pick up those bad habits. Well, like any loving parent, Jehovah does not condone our friendship with friends whose habits and way of life may cause his children harm.